What up, my freaks? RuinusInsight here with part 21 of my Total War Warhammer 3 modded Orion Immortal Empires campaign. So as we saw last time, Durthu has moved on towards the Poxmakers of Nurgle after nearly completing the Ritual of Rebirth at the Haunted Forest, which will be fully done next turn. And so hopefully will Kugath, as if he stays in the Shattered Stone Isle, and Durthu and his massive piles of angry hedges and other types of treekin will swarm him there. Now, in terms of what we got to do this particular turn, there's a lot. Frankly, there's a lot of potential battles to fight, and the biggest one is probably the one that we'll want to start with. This one, Dataen. I was excited to actually try this out. Dataen is damaged in terms of her army. Morgar has recovered a decent pile of troops, and he's got a solid garrison as well, plus whatever buffs the garrison buildings offer there. So there's certainly a fight to be had. Dataen, you're going to move to Montenas, and we'll see if we can do this. Remains to be seen, certainly. It's probably going to say Valiant to be... Oh, it's not. Huh, surprising. He's got a bunch of Gores and Ungores. He still has those Chaos Spawn. Of course, not as elite as the Chaos Spawn of the previous battle. The auto-resolve may be lying in our favor, however, so we still will have to be wary, I would say. Now, Recruiter Shaw Muscle, I would like you to, I guess, jump here, and we'll transfer one of these units over to Dataen, which frankly we should have done earlier. And then I guess we'll have to decide, do we actually want to destroy Montenas or not? I wonder if Magritta has a special location. We should occupy Skavenblade, as I imagine that it does. Don't know about Magritta. Somebody in the comments did say that Miragliano offers us a super outpost, and if it does, it may behoove us to destroy it and occupy it. Though a few other factions might not like us attacking the Tilayans, they're also, well, I don't know. I guess it depends on how much we care. Anyway, for now, it is Morgaring time. So, Morgar, Dataen, see if you can do this. Go. Alrighty, here we go again, round 2 with Morgar, and this time, it's not personal, but this time we will face off against some Vestigors, so a little bit more elite than the army that Morgar had the first time. Great Stag looking once again fantastic, loving that armor on these guys and the glowing antlers and all that. I'm gonna fire off. How are you even firing through that Great Stag? Wait, I want to see this. Are you firing? Huh. I might be using the Great Stag's antlers to, or the top of the Great Stag's head to sort of support the bow. Okay, well, when you're moving, it doesn't look like that, but when its head was up, it looked like you're basically firing like this. But hey, this might actually work. You know what? You know what I'd do? I'd set up a big old slingshot on top of the big boy and just sling away at jerks. Anyway, I forget where I was going with all of this, or well, I wasn't going anywhere with all this. Let's get to battling. Now, I'm going to speed this up. We're going to try to annoy Morgar's force into trying to attack, as after all, this army is essentially intended to hold the line, and the enemy can't really punish us for doing it, as it doesn't have much in the way of range. It has no artillery, it has no towers, so we're free to just annoy them until they well and truly engage. By the looks of it, they're trying to avoid this, but that is allowing us to repeatedly use our arrows of Kurnus off cooldown, because it'll cool down, then we'll be able to fire again. Frankly, we could have probably used a little bit in the way of range here, but all good. And it looks like with our Zotes moving out to try to intercept the Chaos Spawn, the Chaos Spawn are willing to fight. So we're going to try to back off a little bit, try to get them into the actual action. And by the looks of it, that did it. With the Chaos Spawn engaged, the enemy has decided to join the fray, sending many a harpy at us. Of course, these aren't harpies under Malagor, so they're not going to be nearly as threatening to us. And besides, landing right in the middle of our formation like this, probably not Not the best of ideas. Also, being a fragile unit, Shield of Thorns will be very impactful against them, and they will all be destroyed rather quickly. Fortunately for Morgar, he has more where that came from, and they're going to land in support of the Chaos Spawn and the Igors and Ungors that are attacking us as well. The enemy does appear to have been holding, or is continuing to hold, its reserves in, well, reserve, or its elites, I should say, in reserve, as the Bestigors, their heavily armored, armor-piercing, great weapon troops, are still just hanging around waiting for us to get maybe tired? I don't know. Kind of interesting move by the AI, however. Sending in the chaff first to tire us out. This feels like something a player might actually do, so I'm reasonably impressed with the AI. Or at the very least, depending on what kind of faction you're playing. In my mind, everything goes back to playing vampire counts and sending hordes upon hordes of zombies at your enemy and tiring them out, and thereafter moving in your elites. But anyway, we are holding the line, as we do with this army, and quite well, I might add. And it looks like the enemy has gotten ready. Look at that, it's moving all 4 of its units of Bestigors at the same time. It's almost like it waited for the other guys, for the other units of Bestigors to catch up before it sent them all in, which is pretty interesting. We didn't fall for their attempt to hit us on this flank, however, and have maintained our line so that we still have about half of our units of Eternal Guard and Eternal Wardens in reserve behind our line and ready to swap out with any unit that takes sufficient damage, allowing them to heal up over time from the area of effect of Earthblood. Of course, these Zotes are in the fight, but the Zotes are much harder to bring down than individual units of Eternal Guard. And there we go, Bestigor is absolutely towering over those Eternal Guard and Wardens, but, well, I suppose towering over them doesn't help you over much when a big ol' whack from a Zote's Maul is just going to have an easier time targeting you when you're towering over the line like that. There we go. Zotes are certainly doing work while the Guard and the Wardens hold the line as they're supposed to. Getting a little bit of range fire from the enemy Ungor Raiders, supporting the enemy by the looks of it, and with the Bestigors in the midst of the fray, we are certainly going to start taking a little bit more damage than we were before. Our entire line is engaged now, and by the looks of it, the enemy has decided to run most of its army at us, but foolishly, tremendously foolishly, decided not to commit a Morgar. I have noticed repeatedly in these battles around the Herdstones, for whatever reason, the AI almost always seems to sort of keep its lord back, whether it's Morgar, whether it's Kazrak, the last time we fought in a Herdstone, not in this campaign, but another campaign. I think it wasn't in this campaign, I don't even remember anymore. But anyway. Yeah, it does seem to hold the lords back in Herdstone battles, which is unfortunate, and it obviously is detrimental. In Kazrak's case, perhaps, it's a little bit more okay, because us sniping him would be a bad idea, but Morgar basically immune to range and wants to use that Mortis Engine effect in his blob of units, so, yeah. Anyway, looks like we're doing reasonably well. The center and right flank still holding the vast majority of the enemy troops, and we are trying our best to target those Bestigors. The one in the middle of the fray here down to about 20%, this one down about 20% as well, and the other one just dropped below half HP. Once again, the armor piercing on these Zotes absolutely critical here. And I'd wager they probably do a little bit more damage than the Treekin might. They also don't seem to block off our infantry units as much as the Treekin do, so and that's working out reasonably well. And of course, their supporting abilities are helping out nicely, including their dampen effect, which they force a little bit less armor and spell resistance off of the enemy. Might be a good idea to combine a few... Ooh, nice hit from that Zote. Might be a good idea to combine a few of these Zotes together with a few of the Azray War Dancers with... I want to say Azray Spirits. One of them has armor sundering, doesn't it? I think one of them has armor sundering. I do remember one of the infantry units we have access to have armor sundering, so we should probably combine that with Dampen and see how that works out. Not in this army, although I suppose we could use a little bit of armor sundering in this army, but nah, I kind of like it in its current state. This is the problem. If in this army, if we were to put War Dancers, what they'd do is they'd get all the kills, and they would simply vastly outkill they'd vastly outkill the Zoats, they'd very much vastly outkill the Eternal Guard. And it would sort of make this army a little bit different than it currently is. And I like it. It's different from the other armies. It holds the line. And while we can put in a few more support unit modifications from our allies in here, I like it the way it is. But that doesn't mean we can't do the same combination in another army with the Zoats and whatever Sunder's armor. Also, the enemy blobbing up like this, it does give us the advantage of being able to hit them repeatedly with the Awakening of the Wood. It is a basic non-overcast version. Wait, can you even overcast Awakening of the Wood? Huh. I'm not sure. I suppose it doesn't really matter over much. It's also not going to do much damage to the Bestigors. It'll rip through the ranks of Ungors and do decent damage to Gors, but it'll do almost nothing to piles of Bestigors. Not that that's going to matter over much either, as the enemy is starting to now run out of units. The Zoats are certainly using their mass to press the enemy, and even sort of surround them to prevent those that are attempting to break from escaping. Enemy Chaos Spawn, of course, unbreakable and still fighting, and Morgar still too far away from the fray. And he could have made such a difference in this battle. But oh well, we did defeat him in the field already, to be fair. And he did much better than the rest of his army did in that battle as well. Anyway, looks like as this Bestigor unit broken, it'll probably be shattered soon. A couple more Chaos Spawn remaining. A unit of Ungor Raiders has nearly run out of ammunition, but those relatively weak arrows of theirs are not finding too much purchase in these units of ours. Decent armor on us. Really could use that war drum to provide even more armor for the Eternal Guard, and yes, I am still salty about that. Alrighty, and let's see. Tactically, not much more to say about this. The battle is nearly ours. Just going to speed it up a little bit. There we go. Gonna head into those piles of Ungors, with of course these Zoats leading the way. Rather quick. Oh, nice. Sending 4 flying with a single blow. Very, very nice. The Zoats certainly showing up in this particular battle, although, let's see, Enigmas of Gyran, 35 kills, nothing crazy. 37, 7,000 damage, but I imagine that there's probably not anything crazy on any of the units. It's sort of just spread out among the entirety of our army. Since we have no ringer unit, like those War Dancers I was talking about that would essentially soak up all the kills, everybody's kind of working together equally, which, once again, I am enjoying here. Kind of like in our range army where we had the Glade Guard together with the Swift Shiver Shards before the Glade Guard were replaced by Weight Watchers, and the Swift Shiver Shards would get like 4 times as many kills as the Glade Guard did, making them rather pointless. Minus, I suppose, the poison that they were providing, but, well, I think Loren and that army is, well, it's still doing just fine. And the additional damage is, well, the significant increase in damage outdoes the need for poison, essentially. I suppose if we really wanted to, we could put a couple of Glade Riders with poison arrows in there or something like that, but I still think that the Sisters of Avalorn or some Gate Guard would probably be preferable, both from a damage and support, since they both have auras and auto-resolve perspective. But anyway, this isn't about Loren, this is about Datan and this particular army, which, by the looks of it, has gotten the enemy balance power down to about 10%. Morgar is still not having joined the fray. It looks like almost all of his army will be destroyed. If not all of his army. And once again, sending all of those... ooh, wow. I was about to say sending all those Gors and Ungors flying. Looks like the Stag was able to send more of them flying than the Zoats were. And we should get a few charges in. And getting a little bit of action for our Mage. Hovering overhead and popping off a few melee spells. Lovely. Alright, looks like that unit is up. We'll speed it up once again and continue onward. It's taking a fairly decently long while to make our way through this particular herdstone, but, well, I am enjoying it. And I do appreciate that the Beastmen all decided to, you know, sort of swarm us with almost all of their army, because it feels more lawfully appropriate. I feel like they wouldn't stand back and just sort of hang out while this horde of horde of wood elves. I'm sorry about the confusing them, but on the other hand, I mean, Orion is, you know. Anyway, looks like the last vestiges of the enemy army are going to close in an attempt to hold us back. Morgar has at last joined the fray and summoned more chaos spawn. Another reason that he should have been there to get those chaos spawn on the field and help the rest. Alright, and the Chaos Spawn in a very nice line facing off against these Zotes with the units of Eternal Guard and Wardens below them. They're getting knocked around, of course. Can they fly through the Zotes, or what happens to their bodies? What happens to the ragdoll physics when it smashes into your own units? I can't quite tell. I can't quite tell if they're reacting to the Zotes or not. Yeah, they're just it looks like they're just getting knocked around. Of course, the splash damage from our own units will knock them around to some degree as well, I would imagine. Anyway, Chaos Spawn are down to about half HP, in fact, down to about 40% of their HP. Morgar is completely unhurt, but by the looks of it, since he's not unbreakable, we don't even actually have to do anything about that. Most of his army is gone, and the Chaos Spawn are the only things that remain. So I wonder if Morgar is sort of aware of his essentially invincibility, so that when he dies, and he'll just come back. Hard to say. Anyway, Chaos Spawn are pretty much out, and by the looks of it, Morgar will in fact shatter, and the rest of the battle will be ours. No need to get at him, though he was down by about 10% and starting to take a little bit of damage. And we can just ignore him and win the battle with that. There we go, and then this time we're not going to bother chasing him down since he's not on the field, and chasing him down will lead to him doing more damage to us with that more Descendant effect. Why bother? He will simply fall here and his faction will be destroyed. Alright, there we go. That actually went quite a bit better than I thought it would go, as in I thought that it would be more difficult, and the reason that it went so much better was because the AI was stupid, as it generally is, and decided not to send Morgar into the main fight. The big advantage that Morgar has is that he is hard to kill and has a more Descendant effect, which makes him do massive amounts of damage to blobs of units like ours, but because he stayed back near his key capture point, his herdstone, whatever, he wasn't able to take advantage of that, and the fact that he had all those Bestigors to help him out. So, too bad, so sad, Morgar. I doubt we'll be seeing you again. It's 3.6k to raise. I don't imagine that this place has a... well, you know what, we'll seed it. I don't think it's a special. Yeah, it's not a special. Alright, that's fine. I would have preferred the money, but, well, not a big deal. We'll just go with what we got here, then. We'll just abandon it. We're probably not going to bother sticking around here. Yeah, these are ports and they're nice, but we really don't want to keep an army here forever to defend against annoying enemies that potentially sail over here, like, for example, the Vampire Coast or Arcan or whoever else. So, yeah, anyway. Hunting Hound, Royal Standard Bearer, another Scroll of Stone, which is not a bad pickup, and Warherd of the Shadow Gave is destroyed, though we will be seeing them again. Now, for this army, I think what we'll want to do, let me just see here. What we'll want to do, wait, I'm looking in the wrong place. We need, I was gonna say maybe we should take a Warrior Bane and put it in this army as well, because this army is kind of specialized towards holding the ground right now, holding the line rather, and while that does work fairly well, we can increase that further. A Warrior Bane, a Glittering Scales. I really want that War Drum from the Cathans, even if it's unlikely to happen. We'll see. Anyway, we also leveled up, so we might as well max out Piercing Thorns, because, well, all the Eternal Guard and such needed. I find it surprising that the Eternal Guard don't get +6 melee defense like these guys do. Granted, the War Dancers lack melee defense more, perhaps, but it feels like line holder units should probably get it. But anyway. And you... I guess we'll want to move towards Regrowth and Dwellers Below, so we'll start doing so. Oh, Recruiter Sham also leveled up as well, but she's a recruiter, so she can get Growth of the Forest. We'll swap out some units, and then we'll send her back to where she needs to go. Also occupy Skaven Blight. I wonder how much it costs to colonize. 7,000 gold. Quite a bit. We could also try Magritte. You know what? It's probably not going to be a special location. I'm just going to ignore it. Anyway, let's see what else we got to do. There are other fights after all. You two can't move. Loren, you were supposed to knock out Scrag the Slaughterer for good, weren't you? And I imagine that this won't be auto-resolvable. At least I doubt it.
To war.
And, oh, we are also quite a bit damaged, especially on our Way Watchers, who do a lot of our damage. Alright, might be worth our time to fight it, so let's War Banner you up. Let's get the Scarecrow Banner on, I don't know, one of the Waystalkers. It's in this army in case it encounters flying units, which would be a threat to the all-range sort of thing that we got going on. Anyway, we can't auto-resolve because our damage units will get further damaged, and I guess we'll fight. Go. Alright, here we go to battle indeed, and Loren does have his Forest Dragon available now as well. Forest Dragons always looked pretty cool. I like the sort of barky kind of look that they've got with all that moss covering them. They almost look more like... I don't know if realistic is quite the right word, but, well, I just like the way they look is what I'm getting at. Anyway, we're going to start the battle off with having the entire army focus down that enemy tower, some of those tusks, and then make up a portion of the camp's sort of structure will block off the arrows, but we got so many arrows coming in, and that the tower will go down. And you do have to remember that towers are also quite a bit more resistant to range fire in SFO than they are in vanilla, so that's why it took so long to bring said towers down. Otherwise, the rest of our army can start marching on forward. We should be able to get a few shots off into the enemy nobblers over this building, though by the looks of it, similar to the random tusks, this tusked building will also block off a few of those shots. I like all the shields around these around the ogre huts there. With the great moss symbol. They look pretty neat. Anyway, let's see. Nobblers are down to about half HP, but they're hardly the threat here. Azag the Slaughterer with his reinforcements are going to be what determines the battle. He will, by the looks of it, not attempt to charge us and will in fact move around like this into the camp, so we are going to move to meet him rather than going this way. After all, he is outside of the settlement, and thus we have to be careful to actually destroy as much of his army as possible, or he'll simply escape, and we'll have to do this all again. Swift Shiver Shards, sort of skulking their way forward, that's the word I was looking for. We do stop an enemy unit of ogres with the Prey of Anathrema and knock the first few out. I don't imagine the Swift Shiver Shards will be able to penetrate those gut plates of the ogres. But there's plenty of exposed flush to fill with arrows / pincushion. And oh wow, they all targeted the one ogre there. Well, it sucks to be you, sir. Or sucks to have been you, I suppose. Alrighty, and Arrow of Kronos being fired away, Azag moving in, and several arrows of Kronos hit him at the same time. We also target him with a lot of our range units as well. Don't want him casting against us. Casting spells at us, there we go. Alright, and while he does move in, just as he makes it to the line, that's when he decides to break. He's not shattered, and he will continue to heal as he moves away, or at least he would have liked to do so. And fortunately for him, we had yet another Arrow of Kronos in the bank from our flying units. The Forest Dragon comes down as the enemy attempts to flank us and hit us in the back. We are sort of in a dangerous position in the middle of the enemy camp and can get hit from two directions, Slaneshi Giggle, at the same time. Forest Dragon, however, has enough mass to block off the enemy ogres and prevent them from, if not reaching our line, damaging them too much. And plus with the supportive capabilities of the Sisters of the Thorn, who can A, fight in melee, and activate their Shield of Thorns, the single charge at least is not going to be so bad. On the other side, however, with the Forest Dragon not helping out, the units of Saber Tusks did manage to charge on in and do a teensy bit of damage to one of our units of Swiftshiver Shards, the not so long bows. We're going to replace them with Vols Deep here and send the ladder forward. Though we did try to block a decent amount of the enemy units with the Tormentor Sword that we have put into this army. And Dragon comes down again. I'm so glad we're finally seeing some Forest Dragons, even if they are as Lord mounts. Because it does take quite a while to tech our way up to them. Although shortly we'll be building them. I guess it's, well, the capacity is going to be the bigger problem. I think it's 2 per building, so we'll need many tier 5s with the sort of flying building up and running. Anyway, looks like we're doing reasonably well still. The enemy continues to attempt to charge forward towards us, but with a relative lack of effectiveness, I would say. We continue covering overhead both with the Glade Captain and the Forest Dragon riding Lord alike, as together they will be able to react to any enemies that attempt to move towards us. Activating some of those Hail of Doom arrows at some of those enemy Nobblers, and stopping any units that get close enough with the Prey of Anathema, or Tormentor Sword as needed. Alright, Forest Dragon comes down. I'm gonna nom on some ogres. Sometimes the meat takes a bite out of you. Alright, surprisingly that Pounce did not kill off this particular Ogre Bull, but I guess they have enough sufficient HP and to survive that. Battle isn't quite ours yet, but it is very nearly so, as the bounce power shifts to about 90% in our favor. With the Glade Guard no longer in this army, we're also able to fire sideways, both from the Swiftshiver Shards and / Deepwood Scouts and the Way Watchers, and that's working out quite nicely. Nice Forest Dragon Breath right into the middle of that blob of, oh wow, Nobblar Trappers who got basically completely destroyed by said noxious breath in a single use. Granted, it almost feels like it's a waste against the unit of Nobblers, but the Forest Dragon Breath is one of the Dragon Breaths that's good against a blob of units, similar to the Sun Dragon's Breath. Unlike the Star Dragon Breath, which is great against big old single entities. Well, frankly, the Star Dragon Breath is kind of good against everything, but it's not going to be as destructive to big old piles of units as a Sun or Forest Dragon Breath is. And is going to be better at targeting single entities and lords and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, looks like with that the enemy army will shatter and the camp will be ours, or maybe not so much ours as a pile of smoldering ashes. What would the Wood Elves do with it, actually? I would assume they just burn it down, but who knows? Who knows? Maybe they have the Spell Singers plant a few seeds and, I don't know, have roots destroy everything. But anyway, we're going to chase the enemy down as much as we can, that of Azag's army, obviously not the camp army. We don't care that the tyrant escapes, just want everything dead so we don't have to fight it again. Alright, looks like it was worth a fight, at least considering the amount of money we gain, and we can heal up and hopefully hunt down what remains of these armies. Solid damage on our units. Once again, the Sisters of the Thorn probably win the day, minus the Hawkeyes of Drakir, who are always just ridiculous. 55k damage, and as for these guys, looks like Vols Deep with 16k and 72 kills. One for the Swiftshiver Shards, who, by the looks of it, seem to outdamage, well, at least the hurt Way Watchers, but that's hardly surprising. Anyway, abduct those captives. Oh, lovely. The remnants of the reinforcing army will back off, and hopefully we'll be able to reach it to hunt it down. There's another camp here. Frickin' ogres. Ally mission successful. I didn't even realize we had that. Let us... do we even auto-resolve? We're hurt. Somewhat concerning. You know what? We will maybe not auto-resolve it. Nah, just auto-resolve it. We'll probably still take damage, but what can you do? At least we can heal most of it up. And then we can't reach... Or actually, can we? Well, we can reach Nog Flag. Hello, Bow of Loren. Bombardment. Oh, I see. A reload time reduction and magical... Huh. Well, that's interesting. A moment. Reload timer. Where are the Sisters of Twilight? I was going to originally have them continue using the refined dreaming bow because it gives plus 10 missile strength. But this Bow of Loren, despite being a common item, gives them magical attacks, which will turn their range attacks into, well, magical attacks. And 10% reload reduction, I'm pretty sure, is worth just as much as 10% missile strength. Go figure. Assuming that they have sufficient ammunition to sustain this is probably actually the better weapon than the blue weapon. Strange. And Bow of Loren would probably not be super useful, or the ability would probably not be super useful in this army, but it's an active ability. Could potentially have some uses. And also, while we're in this menu, who's Dylan? Are you this one? Yeah, alright. I was wondering who had the Pigeon Plucker pendant. I wanted to take the Sword of Battle and the Sword of Might and fuse them into an Armor of Fortune. Well, isn't that lovely? I don't remember who I was going to give this to. Draika, what do you have armor-wise? Nothing. Well, guess what you're gonna get then. You know what? Draika, I'm gonna give you the Trickster's Helm. From the Sisters of... From the Sisters of Twilight. Why? Because A, Draika is best girl, and B, because she has the other Trickster shards, the regular Trickster shard, and now she has to have the Trickster's Helm. I mean, come on. It makes sense. Also, you're missing an ancillary. Iskura has one of these, Datan has another, and Daith has another. It's not horrible. I was gonna give the Wraiths of the Frozen Heart one, but... I also noticed that Draika doesn't have magical... Oh, yes, she does. Melee attack is magical. Never mind. War Banner wouldn't be useful in her army. We could give her Ranger Standard. I assume she already has... Oh, she actually doesn't have Strider. Okay, well, for now... Well, no, but then again, she shouldn't be faster than the rest of her army. Which means it's kind of useless, huh? Should we just take away one of the Razor Standards from the other ones? Who doesn't need it? No, we'll just hold off. We'll probably still give her something. Anyway, the Armor of Fortune then will have to go to the Sisters of Twilight, who are probably also about to fight as well. So probably appropriate that we're swapping some items around for them. Armor of Fortune. There we go. Alright, oh, and speaking of Draika, as you may have noticed when I was looking at her items, her army is now complete. The 4 brand traits are in here, all trying to get towards the Birch, Oak, and Willow in order to power up her Dryads. And of course, we have Coadil, who now has these 2 named units of Malevolent Treemen, 5 units of Malevolent Dryads with bows, 5 units of regular, well, 4 units of Malevolent Dryads, the Wraiths of the Frozen Heart, and a couple of the regular Dryads as well. One because one is named and deserves to be here, and the other just because it makes sense to have 2. It would have bothered me otherwise. Plus, I wanted the additional sort of color schemes all available in this single army. Anyway, I believe we're on to the next Lord and/or hero. Loren. This guy's gonna run, so I think you shouldn't bother chasing him because this is attrition-y. So you're just gonna go near him, but then encamp. Huh. And we could go after and destroy this camp, or we could ignore it, go here, and then jump to Argalis and destroy that, and then come back for it. You know what? I think that's the better idea. Destroy their last settlement. Maybe they'll take another settlement, but we gotta come back here anyway. Although we have gone fairly far, we'll return to the Forest of Gloom with this particular army once it's ready to get its ritual up and running. Anyway, who's up next? Skura, you're stuck where you are. Zaltathios doesn't need to move. Aezrit, you're just here guarding stuff. Sisters, we'll attack with them in a second. Let's move everybody else around if anybody does need to be moved around, and by the looks of it, nobody does. Alrighty. I also put the giant wolves in this army, but I think while they do work with Akka's sort of concept, Akka doesn't, he's a regular tree man, not a malevolent tree man, and thus he doesn't have Dark Heart, and he doesn't have whatever the other thing is that buffs these guys up, so it probably wouldn't be as useful to have them in this army. And I still think he should have the tree men to go with the treekin. But anyway, for now, I guess that was the last thing we needed to do. So, sisters, you're gonna hit Rothkar Spire. And I guess, this is dangerous. This is very dangerous. The reason it's dangerous is because we could get immediately attacked afterwards by Grombi. In fact, I'd say it's fairly likely. But nonetheless, this is what we're gonna do. Let's see how well the Sisters of Twilight work here. Give you the Scarecrow banner. Pyrrhic victory? We'll see. Go. Alrighty, here we go. Finally, a little bit of debut action from the Sisters of Twilight with their bolt thrower-like, attacks. These have always looked really, really cool, and if nothing else, it always adds a lot of flair to the Sisters' army. I mean, doesn't that look fantastic? Yeah. Funnily enough, the Sisters of Athel Loren would also work really nicely in their army just by virtue of the way that their ammunition looks. But anyway, Forest Dragon Breath will join some of those split-shot attacks into these boar boys, which, if not destroyed, are getting ready to rout. Enemy is moving towards us in a relatively big blob, so we'll continue targeting the center of the blob with those shots and see how much damage we can do. Primarily with the Sisters of Twilight alone, as the rest of the army is backed off. We've got 16k damage as a start, pretty darn solid. As for how we've set up this battle, obviously we are undermanned and, well, not only undermanned, but very much in danger. If we take sufficient damage here, Grombrindle could attack us immediately in an attack of opportunity, I said it correctly this time, and possibly destroy us. I mean, I'd still say it's not super likely, depending on what he has in his army, but why risk it? Anyway, we have a little tiny impassable terrain here, and we Vanguard deployed, well, actually only the Dryads were Vanguard deployed, but deployed out here to make use of this to protect our units. The Glade Guard will be protected by the 2 limited units of Dryads, and we will allow the enemy to travel a fairly reasonable distance with their army to try to move towards us. Obviously, the idea here is to put them under as much fire from the Sisters as we can, whether it be from their split shot or the Arrow of Kurnus ability. We've also got a single unit of Eagles to send at the enemy, and a second unit of Eagles has joined them, and by being summoned via the transformation of Kadan. What the heck are the Eagles doing, you wonder? There are 3 enemy magicians or casters on the field, an Orc Shaman and 2 Night Goblin Shamans, so we're going to have the Eagles either shatter them or kill them, and then obviously move on to the Error Boys afterwards if they don't, get too distracted. Anyway. Naestra and Arahan directly covering over the enemy army. Now we're going to just back off a little bit so that we can target the enemy. We will fire backwards, as it does appear that they can fire whilst moving. Do have to be careful with that, however, as if they had, for example, targeted the Orc Boys here, that might have been bad for the Dryads. Dryads do manage to prevent the Boar Boys from charging us. And we do try to target the enemy Orc Boar Boss, but by the looks of it, we're going to have to come down and hit him directly in melee. There we go, not to worry though, the War Boss is pretty much dead anyway, and another pounce from Naestra and Arahan's Dragon will send, well, will turn the turn the enemy lord into a pile of mush. The enemy army is here, but the morale shock from that death of the enemy lord, broken, lord incapacitated, seems to have sent several of the enemy units routing. In fact, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units routing, despite the fact that they have decent HP right as they were about to overwhelm our lines. That worked out really, really lucky. Well, Great Eagles are doing a good job. Well, they're Great Eagles, so they're doing a great job. And ow! We summon Great Eagles, not Great Forest Eagles. Oh, come on, these are High Elven Eagles. Game, what are you doing? But anyway, yeah, they're doing a great job at destroying those casters. Still in melee with our dragon. I'm gonna drop another one of those arrows, well, not arrow kernels, or talons. Hawk's Talons. I always forget the name of that spell, or ability. There we go, and that's a single shot coming in from the Sisters of Twilight because I forgot to turn it off, or rather turn it back to the multi-shot. Both of them look pretty darn cool though. Alright, and the enemy army is in pretty bad shape now. Looks like they've failed to breach our lines, and we're going to start giving chase. And the Hawk Riders have been forced into melee, so that all of those units that shattered, or well, not shattered, but broke and routed on the death of the enemy lord, so that they cannot come back. We're going to make sure that the Eagle or that the Hawk Riders stay within their range, keep attacking them. And I'm gonna get that single shot on the enemy Black Orc Big Boss here, while the Great Eagles will touch down. And frankly, Great Eagles are fantastic assassin units, as we've already seen with the enemy casters, and will do their job quite well. And it looks like that is sufficient. The casters have been sent off. Most of the enemy range units were prevented from doing anything by the Eagles, and the Hawks chased down this whole blob of units and prevented them from rallying. And we got a decisive victory with barely any casualties, despite the fact that we were outnumbered. All right, very nice indeed. Despite the sort of basic nature of most of the army and the fact that it's an incomplete army and it's missing like 5 or 6 units, we still managed to win the day quite handily. 55k damage on the Sisters of Twilight, Dragon Breath ability, well, her sort of Reaper Bolt Thrower or Eagle Bolt Thrower or Hawk Bolt Thrower style attacks, all good. And in fact, out of all the armies, oh man, if we could, she could really use Lothran Skycutters, but anyway, they rather. 3k money, nice. And, ooh, I'm tempted to raise it, but once again, it's a neighboring province, so I guess we'll cede it. That is a nice amount of cash. War Dancer, Drummer, enemy killed in battle, province secured, Red Desert, you can polish a dung heap apparently, and 1,000 free gold for our trouble. Also, that should have given us enough money to upgrade, I want to say, the Jungles of Qian, yes, up to tier 4. And it's already cheaper, so 27k. Oh, it's so expensive, but what can you do? What can you do? You gotta get those buildings built up ASAP. And we also gotta keep recruiting those lovely outpost units. Speaking of the outpost units, we will also have some Dragon Princes on the way. The Dragon Princes may be combined with Stag Knights in an army. If we can get the Bretonnians to get high enough levels to actually build good Knight units, maybe we'll use some of those, but so far they're not past tier 3, which means no Grail Knights, no Grail Guardians, no Pegasus Knights, just sort of garbage. Well, I mean, don't get me wrong, Knights of the Realm are great, questing Knights are fantastic, but they're not going to outdo Wild Riders, and they're not going to fight on par with the Stag Knights either. So we only want their cab if we can get the best of their cab. Anyway, I believe we're ready to end the turn. We're also completely out of time, so I just want to end the turn to make sure that I can do whatever unnecessary admin remains between the episodes. So end turn. And I guess this way we'll see if anything interesting happens, like we get attacked or anything like that. Ooh, plus the ritual will complete as soon as the turn ends, which we've been waiting for. And I imagine that this next turn is when we'll be able to pop our next ritual, which will be great. No peace for you, Luther Harkin. We need as many enemy factions to remain at war with as possible because, well, factions are dwindling in number, it seems, with every turn. And the more wars we have, the more we can still maintain those armies that we have in upkeep. Alright, what the heck is happening? Hey, our first ritual is complete. That means Ariel is finally on field. And, oh, I was going to give her another Trickster Shard, but alas, she has all of her... she has all the items. Also, does she buff any kind of units, or is she only magical? On fertile ground gives us... Ooh, construction cost minus 20% for all buildings local province. When the Wild Hunt is up, we can make good use of this. Forest's Calling... I'd like capacity, not rank. So she obviously has some very, very strong... Hello. Number of uses +1 for Bounce Battle Sisters of the Thorn in the army, if you were wondering why we have Sisters of the Thorn in this army, other than the fact that they count as cav. What else do we have? Ward save for Accompanying Lord. More buffs for Sisters of the Thorn. Cooldown to Dart of Doom and Acorns of the Oak. That's her own ability. She starts with Apotheosis. She has one with the Forest and a lot of other stuff that's similar to our other mages. Ooh, so many passives though. Very, very nice. Well, we gotta start leveling her. It's taken a while to get here, but, well, we're here at last. Anyway, with that, folks, Circo, yeah, you can have Disciplinarian. The Queen emerges! Your recent efforts in healing the glades of the world have roused Ariel from the Oak of Ages. She has emerged to lend her strength to your great cause. And, Ritual of Rebirth succeeded! Our first Amber! Abundant growth, deep roots cleared, not helpful right now. At least not while the hunt is on, and a little bit of cash, which we obviously won't say no to. Lovely, lovely. In addition to that, we are able to build the Nobler Outpost, which, despite the cost, will also give us access to recruitment of Forest Dragons without needing Tier 5, which is nice. So 3 turns until we get our first Forest Dragons, plus an additional hero capacity, which we can certainly use. Ooh, Verdant Sage, yes please. Oh, that's nice. That's real nice. Hello, was that another breezy? Yeah, it's another breezy one. Where do we get our Verdant Sage up and running? Where can we steal a lot of tech? I guess down here is a pretty solid place. Can't recruit them everywhere, can we? No. Alright, so let's go for Verdant Sage. And, oh, right, we're out of time. I just wanted to keep playing. Wisdom of the Yew is always the first one you take because it gives you infusions for your treemen, and dryads. Yeah, on top of the range and reload reduction for everybody else, which is just swell. Anyway, calling it here. More Orion to come. Stay tuned. All glory to the algorithm. And thanks for watching.